Quiet girls should stick to keyboards, not courts.
Derek Stone's voice cut through TechFlow Corporation's recreation center like a blade, each word dripping with the casual cruelty that came naturally to men who'd never faced consequences. The sound echoed off gymnasium walls, harsh, dismissive, designed to humiliate. The sharp slap of his hand against Maya Collins's sport bra strap followed. Hard cut to a security monitor displaying 12:47 p.m., incident logged in stark red letters. Maya Collins stood frozen at the free throw line, her 26-year-old frame trembling not with fear, but with a rage so pure it threatened to crack her carefully constructed facade. The IT security specialist had spent 6 months preparing for this moment, though she'd never imagined it would unfold quite like this. Derek Stone, regional sales director and self-appointed king of the company basketball team, had just crossed a line that would cost him everything. "Games end," Derek continued, bouncing the ball with practiced arrogance. "Records don't." He had no idea how prophetic those words would become. 3 cameras, 2 criminals, 1 mistake they'll never delete. The TechFlow Recreation Center buzzed with the energy of lunch break basketball, a daily ritual that had become less about sport and more about establishing corporate pecking order. Derek commanded the court like a general surveying his troops. Brad Chen, the official team captain, flanked his right side with military precision. The other players formed a semicircle around Maya, their eyes hungry for entertainment. Maya had made the mistake of wanting to play. Just play. She'd been a decent player in college, before life forced her into the shadows of server rooms and security protocols. Before her mother's cancer diagnosis changed everything. Before quiet became her survival strategy. "You know what I love about basketball?" Derek continued, his voice carrying that particular tone successful men used when they wanted to humiliate someone weaker. "It separates the players from the pretenders, the strong from the soft." The words hung in the air like smoke. Maya felt every eye in the room measuring her response. This was the test. This was where she was supposed to back down, apologize for presuming she belonged, and retreat to her cubicle where women like her were supposed to stay. Instead, she did something unexpected. She smiled. Sarah Mitchell appeared at the recreation center's entrance with the timing of someone who'd been watching from the hallway. The HR director moved with the fluid grace of a woman who understood power dynamics better than most, her professional smile already in place before she'd fully assessed the situation. "Everything okay in here?" Sarah's voice carried just the right amount of authority mixed with concern. She was 34, impeccably dressed even in the casual Friday atmosphere, and possessed the kind of competence that made her indispensable to upper management. Derek's posture shifted slightly, the bully's instinctive response to authority. "Just some friendly competition, Sarah. Maya here was about to learn about team dynamics." "I see." Sarah's eyes swept the scene with calculating precision. "Maya, how are you feeling about all this?" The question seemed innocent enough, but Maya caught something in Sarah's tone that made her pause, a subtle probing, a data collection exercise disguised as concern. "I'm fine," Maya replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "Just wanted to shoot some hoops." Sarah nodded, making a mental note. "Well, we certainly encourage employee wellness activities. Just remember, we're all on the same team here at TechFlow." As Sarah retreated to her office, Derek's confidence returned in full force. The brief interruption had only delayed the inevitable. He bounced the ball twice, then launched into his favorite speech about natural hierarchies and knowing one's place. Maya listened with the patience of someone who'd been recording everything. The sport bra incident happened during what Derek called a friendly scrimmage. Maya had actually been holding her own, her college muscle memory serving her better than expected. She'd sunk 2 3-pointers that wiped the smirk off Brad's face and earned grudging nods from the other players. That's when Derek decided to escalate. "Nice form," he said, moving closer than necessary as Maya prepared for another shot. "But you're a little tense here. His hand found her shoulder strap, fingers sliding under the fabric. Maybe if you loosened up a bit. The violation was swift and calculated. A quick snap of elastic against skin. A moment that lasted forever and no time at all. The kind of assault that powerful men committed because they knew victims rarely had the resources to fight back. Maya's hand moved to her laptop bag with practiced efficiency. Inside, a custom-built monitoring system connected to TechFlow's security network hummed to life. She'd been preparing for 6 months, ever since she'd first noticed the discrepancies in the company's payroll system. Every camera in the building was now her ally. "Thanks for that," she said quietly, her voice carrying a weight Derek didn't understand. "Really appreciate the demonstration." Derek laughed, the sound bouncing off the gymnasium walls. "Anytime, Maya. Maybe next time you'll think twice before stepping onto my court." He had no idea that his court was now hers. Maya Collins had never intended to become a whistleblower. 26 years old, introverted by nature, she'd built her career on being invisible. Its security was perfect for someone who preferred shadows to spotlight, systems to people. She could disappear into lines of code and emerge hours later with solutions that kept TechFlow's digital infrastructure running smoothly. But invisibility had its advantages. When you were the person responsible for maintaining security protocols, you saw things, patterns that didn't make sense, anomalies that told stories. The first anomaly had appeared 3 months ago during a routine payroll audit. Derek Stone's team received monthly performance bonuses that seemed inconsistent with their actual sales numbers. Nothing illegal on the surface, just corporate favoritism taken to an extreme. The second anomaly was the timing. Every bonus payment coincided with Derek's basketball team victories. Internal corporate games that somehow generated significant cash rewards. The third anomaly was the source. The bonuses came from a budget line item labeled Team Development Initiatives, a category that should have funded training seminars and corporate retreats. Maya had access. As IT's security, she could audit any system, examine any transaction, trace any digital footprint. She had audit capabilities that let her track money flows across the entire corporate structure. Most importantly, she had archive privileges that allowed her to preserve evidence in ways that couldn't be deleted or modified. These weren't just tools, they were weapons. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID showed Riverside Medical Center, the facility where her mother received chemotherapy treatments. Maya stepped away from the basketball court, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Hi, Mom. Yes, I remembered about the medication schedule. The new prescription should be ready by 3 p.m. She paused, listening to her mother's weak voice. "No, work is fine. Everything's fine." Nothing was fine. Her mother's cancer treatments cost more than Maya's entire annual salary, even with insurance. The financial pressure was crushing, but it was also motivating. She couldn't afford to lose this job. She also couldn't afford to let Derek's behavior continue unchecked. When she returned to the recreation center, Sarah Mitchell was there again, her timing impeccable. "Personal call?" Sarah asked with casual interest. "I hope everything's okay with your family situation." The question felt intrusive, though Maya couldn't pinpoint why. Sarah's tone was perfectly appropriate, her concern seemingly genuine. But there was something else there. A fishing expedition disguised as small talk. "Just routine stuff," Maya replied carefully. "Of course. Family obligations can be so challenging to balance with work demands. If you ever need to discuss flexible arrangements or support resources, my door is always open." Sarah's offer sounded helpful, but Maya sensed an undercurrent of information gathering. HR directors were trained to collect data about employee vulnerabilities. Maya filed the interaction away for later analysis. Derek appeared beside them, his post-game arrogance in full display. "Sarah, you should have seen Maya's performance today. Really educational. I'm sure it was, Sarah replied with a professional smile. Learning experiences are valuable for everyone involved. The exchange felt loaded with subtext that Maya couldn't quite decode. Sarah and Derek seemed to communicate on a frequency just beyond her comprehension, their words carrying meanings that existed in corporate spaces she'd never learned to navigate. Maya, Sarah continued, I was actually hoping to chat with you about some procedural updates. Nothing urgent, but when you have a moment this week, we should touch base. Another data collection mission, Maya realized. Sarah was building a profile, gathering intelligence about the quiet IT girl who'd dared to challenge Derek's authority. The smart move would be to comply, schedule the meeting, and submit to whatever administrative processing Sarah had planned. Instead, Maya activated her security protocols. That evening, Maya sat in her apartment staring at 6 months of evidence spread across 3 monitors. The basketball incident was just the tip of an iceberg that went deeper than she'd initially suspected. Her automated payroll audit system had been running continuously, flagging anomalies and preserving documentation with the methodical precision of a machine that never slept. The numbers told a story that made her stomach turn. Derek Stone's team had received over $400,000 in performance bonuses over the past 18 months. The payments came in consistent monthly installments of $23,000, always processed on the same day Derek's basketball team claimed victory in their internal corporate leagues. But here's what made Maya's blood run cold. The basketball games were meaningless. Internal recreation activities with no bearing on actual company performance. Yet somehow these trivial victories generated substantial cash rewards that coincided perfectly with Derek's team's bonus payments. The money came from Team Development LLC, a shell company that existed solely to funnel cash into Derek's operation. Maya's IT privileges let her trace the digital signatures on every transaction. Derek's name appeared on the receiving end, but the authorization signatures came from someone else entirely. Someone with higher clearance. Someone with access to executive-level financial systems. Someone who had been very careful to maintain plausible deniability. Maya's fingers flew across her keyboard, following digital breadcrumbs through TechFlow's labyrinthine financial structure. The shell company had been established 2 years ago with a single purpose: extract money from TechFlow's legitimate budget categories and redistribute it through fake bonus payments. The operation was sophisticated, systematic, and absolutely illegal. But it was also sloppy in one crucial way. Every transaction carried timestamp data that revealed exactly when each authorization had been processed. Maya cross-referenced these timestamps with employee keycard access logs, meeting schedules, and security camera footage. The pattern that emerged made her question everything she thought she knew about TechFlow's power structure. The next morning brought news that made Maya's investigation suddenly urgent. CEO William Richardson called an all-hands meeting to announce the quarterly performance review process. Derek Stone was being fast-tracked for promotion to Vice President of Regional Sales, a position that would give him authority over budget allocations and personnel decisions across 3 states. The promotion would be finalized in 72 hours. Maya felt the walls closing in. If Derek received VP authority, he'd have the power to restructure entire departments. He could eliminate her position, destroy evidence, and bury any investigation before it started. Worse, he'd have access to budget categories that could fund even larger theft operations. The countdown had begun. T-minus 72 hours. She needed help, but reaching out meant risking everything. Maya had learned from watching other whistleblowers that corporate retaliation was swift and merciless. Companies protected their own, especially when their own generated substantial revenue streams. Derek Stone wasn't just TechFlow's golden boy. He was their most visible success story, the charismatic leader who'd supposedly transformed their regional sales performance. His promotion was a foregone conclusion unless Maya could prove what she suspected. The evidence was overwhelming, but evidence meant nothing without a platform to present it. Maya needed allies, and she needed them fast. Jessica Williams from finance became Maya's lifeline, though not in the way either of them expected. They'd shared coffee breaks occasionally, bonding over their shared status as women navigating a male-dominated corporate environment. Jessica was 28, sharp-minded, and blessed with the kind of analytical skills that made her indispensable to TechFlow's financial operations. "You look terrible," Jessica said during their Thursday coffee break. "Everything okay?" Maya hesitated. Trust was dangerous in corporate environments, especially when dealing with potential fraud. But isolation was more dangerous. She needed someone who understood financial systems and could verify her findings. "Can I show you something?" Maya asked carefully. "Something that might be problematic." Jessica's eyes sharpened. As a finance analyst, she'd developed instincts about institutional problems. Maya's careful phrasing suggested something significant. They moved to Maya's workstation, where 6 months of evidence waited on encrypted drives. Maya walked Jessica through the automated audit system, the shell company discovery, and the systematic bonus payments that coincided with Derek's basketball victories. Jessica's expression grew darker with each revelation. "Holy cow," Jessica whispered, her voice barely audible. "This isn't just fraud. This is organized theft. Someone's been using Derek's team as a distribution network for embezzled funds." "But who's authorizing the payments?" Maya asked. "The digital signatures don't match Derek's administrative profile." Jessica studied the transaction logs with professional intensity. Her expertise in financial systems gave her insights Maya had missed. After 20 minutes of analysis, she looked up with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. "Maya, these authorization patterns, they're coming from someone with executive-level clearance, someone who has access to budget approvals across multiple departments." The implication hung between them like a loaded weapon. Derek Stone might be the visible face of the operation, but he wasn't the mastermind. Someone higher up the corporate hierarchy was pulling the strings, using Derek's basketball team as cover for a sophisticated embezzlement scheme. "We need to be careful," Jessica continued. "If this goes as high as I think it does, exposing it could destroy careers, including ours." Maya felt the weight of 71 hours pressing down on her. Derek's promotion ceremony was scheduled for Monday morning. After that, any investigation would become exponentially more difficult. "There's something else," Maya said quietly. "I think someone's been watching me." She explained about Sarah Mitchell's convenient appearances, the probing questions about family situations, and the subtle pressure to schedule administrative meetings. Jessica's expression grew more troubled. "Sarah has access to comprehensive employee files," Jessica said slowly. "Background checks, performance evaluations, personal information that employees provide for insurance and emergency contacts. You think she's involved? I think she's protecting someone. The question is whether she's protecting Derek or someone else entirely." Maya's phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Conference room B, 5 minutes. Come alone. S." Sarah Mitchell was waiting when Maya arrived at conference room B, her professional demeanor intact, but something different in her eyes. The room was small, windowless, designed for private conversations that needed to stay private. "Maya, thank you for coming," Sarah began, her voice carrying subtle authority. "I wanted to discuss some concerns that have come to my attention." Maya's pulse quickened. This was either an opportunity to gain an ally or a trap that would end her investigation. "What kind of concerns?" "Employee dynamics, workplace tensions. The incident yesterday in the recreation center has generated some feedback." Sarah's phrasing was carefully neutral, but Maya sensed undercurrents of threat. Someone had complained about Maya's presence on the basketball court. Someone wanted her removed from spaces where she might witness inconvenient truths. "I understand there might be personality conflicts," Sarah continued, "but I want you to know that TechFlow is committed to maintaining a supportive environment for all employees. Sometimes that means helping people find roles where they can be most successful." The words sounded supportive, but Maya heard the subtext clearly. Shape up or ship out. Conform to Derek's hierarchy or face administrative consequences. "I appreciate your concern," Maya replied carefully, "but I'm comfortable with my current role and responsibilities." Sarah nodded, making notes on a tablet Maya hadn't noticed before. "Of course! Just remember that our comprehensive employee files include detailed performance metrics and behavioral assessments. We care about our people's personal situations and want to ensure everyone has the support they need." The phrase felt loaded with meaning Maya couldn't quite grasp. Sarah seemed to be referencing something specific, some piece of information that went beyond standard HR knowledge. "Is there something specific you'd like to discuss?" Maya asked. "Not at this time, but I want you to know that my door is always open." Sometimes employees face challenges outside of work that can impact their professional performance. Family obligations, medical situations, financial pressures. We have resources available to help. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Sarah's words were theoretically supportive, but they felt like a catalog of vulnerabilities, almost like Sarah was inventorying potential pressure points. "I'm doing fine," Maya said firmly. "I'm sure you are. Just remember that discretion is often the better part of valor. Some battles aren't worth fighting, especially when they might impact the people we care about most." The meeting ended with polite smiles and professional handshakes, but Maya left feeling like she'd just been warned. Sarah's references to family obligations and medical situations felt too specific to be coincidental. Had she somehow learned about Maya's mother's cancer treatments? That evening, Maya's automated audit system flagged a new anomaly. Someone had accessed her personnel file after hours, downloading information that should have been restricted to emergency situations. The access came from Sarah Mitchell's administrative account, but the timestamp showed it occurred during a period when Sarah's keycard indicated she was in a meeting with Derek Stone and 3 other executives. Maya stared at the data, her mind racing through possibilities. Either Sarah had shared her login credentials with someone else, or she had found a way to access employee files remotely while maintaining an alibi elsewhere. Neither explanation was comforting. The next morning brought an email that made Maya's blood freeze. The company-wide announcement detailed the upcoming quarterly performance review meeting, but buried in the administrative details was a bombshell. The meeting would be live-streamed to all employees as part of TechFlow's new transparency initiative. Derek's promotion ceremony would be broadcast to the entire company. Maya realized she was looking at either her greatest opportunity or her final deadline. The live stream meant she could expose Derek's fraud operation to everyone simultaneously, bypassing corporate gatekeepers who might try to bury her evidence. But it also meant she had less than 48 hours to build an airtight case that could survive public scrutiny and corporate retaliation. She activated her most sophisticated security protocol, one she'd hoped never to use. Every piece of evidence was encrypted and distributed across multiple secure servers. Every transaction was time-stamped and verified through redundant systems. Every digital footprint was preserved in formats that couldn't be altered or deleted. Maya Collins was about to go to war. The investigation that followed tested every skill Maya had developed during her 6-year career in IT security. She worked through the night, following money trails that snaked through shell companies and dummy accounts with the complexity of an international conspiracy. Team Development LLC was just the beginning. The shell company fed into a network of subsidiary accounts that redirected funds across multiple business categories. Training budgets became bonus payments. Equipment purchases became cash distributions. Research and development funds became Derek's personal slush fund. The scope was breathtaking. Over the past 2 years, the operation had extracted nearly $850,000 from TechFlow's legitimate business operations. But the deeper Maya dug, the more convinced she became that Derek Stone wasn't the architect of this scheme. The authorizations were too sophisticated, the financial structures too complex for someone whose expertise was regional sales management. Someone with executive-level access was orchestrating everything, using Derek as a charismatic frontman while maintaining careful distance from the actual criminal activity. Maya's breakthrough came at 3 a.m., when her pattern analysis software identified a crucial anomaly in the authorization timestamps. Every fraudulent transaction had been approved during periods when the supposed authorizing party had documented alibis elsewhere in the building. Someone was using executive-level credentials while maintaining perfect plausible deniability about their location and activities. Maya cross-referenced the timestamp data with keycard access logs, meeting schedules, and security camera footage from the past 18 months. The pattern that emerged was so sophisticated it took her breath away. The mastermind had been hiding in plain sight, using administrative authority to approve fraudulent transactions while creating documentary evidence of their presence elsewhere during each criminal act. But Maya had something the mastermind hadn't anticipated: automated logging systems that recorded every digital action with forensic precision. The evidence was all there, waiting for someone with the right access and analytical skills to piece it together. The person who had been approving Derek's fraudulent bonuses while maintaining perfect alibis was someone Maya had trusted, someone who had offered help and expressed concern for her welfare, someone who had access to comprehensive employee files and the administrative authority to gather personal information about vulnerable employees. Maya stared at the evidence on her screen, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. The timestamps didn't lie. The digital signatures were authentic. The pattern was unmistakable. Sarah Mitchell had been orchestrating everything. The HR director who had expressed concern about Maya's family situation, who had offered support and counseling, who had appeared with perfect timing after every incident between Maya and Derek. Sarah wasn't protecting Derek from Maya's investigation. She was protecting herself, using Derek as a puppet while positioning herself as the helpful administrator who just wanted everyone to get along. Maya felt sick. She'd been manipulated by someone who specialized in manipulation, studied by someone whose job was understanding employee psychology and vulnerability. But now she had proof. Ironclad, digital evidence that could expose the entire operation. The question was whether she'd live long enough to use it. Her phone rang at 3:30 a.m. Unknown number. Maya's hand hovered over the decline button, but something made her answer. "Stop digging," a voice said without preamble. Gender neutral, electronically modified to avoid identification. Or your mother's medical care becomes complicated. Maya's blood turned to ice water. "I know about the cancer treatments. I know which facility. I know her doctor's names and her medication schedule. Stop now, or you'll regret it forever." The line went dead. Maya sat in her dark apartment, staring at her phone and feeling the walls close in around her. Someone had done a comprehensive background check on her personal life. Someone knew about her mother's vulnerability and was willing to use it as a weapon. Only one person at TechFlow had access to that level of personal information. Sarah Mitchell wasn't just stealing money. She was targeting anyone who threatened her operation with the kind of personal destruction that left no fingerprints. Maya looked at her computer screen, where 6 months of evidence waited to destroy Sarah's carefully constructed facade. Her finger hovered over the delete key, trembling with the weight of an impossible choice. Protect her mother's life, or pursue justice for Derek's victims. save the person she loved most, or expose the criminal who had manipulated them all. The countdown continued. T-minus 36 hours until Derek's promotion ceremony. 36 hours until Sarah's operation became untouchable. Maya closed her eyes and made the decision that would define the rest of her life. She was going to finish what she started, regardless of the cost. But first, she needed to ensure her mother's safety through channels Sarah couldn't monitor or control. Maya had learned from the best cybersecurity experts in the business. She knew how to disappear information, reroute communications, and create digital blindness in surveillance systems. Sarah Mitchell was about to discover that threatening Maya Collins had been the biggest mistake of her criminal career. The war was just beginning. Hey, thanks for sticking with me through this intense beginning. It only gets more shocking from here. If you're watching from a country where workplace harassment is taken seriously, drop your flag below. Hit that like button because Maya's about to show these criminals what real evidence gathering looks like. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where the quiet ones turn out to be the most dangerous. The thanks button really helps support content like this, where we dig deep into corporate corruption and the people brave enough to fight back. Maya spent the next 18 hours implementing the most sophisticated security operation of her career. She couldn't save her mother by backing down from Sarah's investigation. That would only give Sarah more time to perfect her threats and expand her criminal network. The only way forward was to expose everything so comprehensively that Sarah would be too busy defending herself in federal court to harm anyone else. Maya's first priority was creating untraceable communication channels between herself and her mother's medical team. Using encrypted messaging apps and routing connections through multiple proxy servers, she established contact with Dr. Elizabeth Barnes, her mother's primary oncologist at Riverside Medical Center. Dr. Barnes, this is Maya Collins. I need to discuss additional security measures for my mother's treatment. Security measures? Maya, is everything all right? Someone has threatened to interfere with her medical care. I need to ensure that only authorized personnel have access to her treatment information and that any changes to her medication or care plan require verification through multiple channels. Dr. Barnes's tone shifted to professional concern. Maya, if someone is threatening medical interference, you need to contact law enforcement immediately. I will, but I need 48 hours to build a case that will stick. Can you implement additional verification protocols until then? Absolutely. We take patient safety very seriously. I'll flag your mother's file for enhanced security monitoring. Maya felt a small measure of relief. Sarah's threat relied on her ability to access her mother's medical information through standard channels. By implementing additional security measures, Maya had created barriers that would slow down any interference attempt and generate documentation if Sarah tried to follow through on her threats. Next, Maya activated her most sophisticated evidence preservation protocol. Every piece of information about Derek's fraud operation and Sarah's involvement was encrypted and distributed across multiple secure servers, including cloud storage systems that operated outside TechFlow's corporate network. Even if Sarah somehow gained access to Maya's work systems and deleted everything, the evidence would survive on external servers that updated automatically and maintained complete audit trails of any access attempts. Maya was building a dead man's switch. If anything happened to her, if she was fired or forced to abandon her investigation, the evidence would automatically be transmitted to the Department of Labor, the FBI's white-collar crime division, and 3 major news organizations. Sarah Mitchell had made this personal. Maya was about to make it permanent. The office atmosphere on Friday morning crackled with anticipation of Monday's promotion ceremony. Derek Stone moved through the hallways like a conquering hero, accepting congratulations from colleagues who had no idea they were celebrating a criminal enterprise. Maya watched from her workstation as Derek glad-handed executives and posed for informal photos that would probably accompany the press release announcing his promotion. His confidence was absolute, his swagger unchecked by any awareness that his entire operation was about to collapse. Sarah Mitchell appeared at Maya's desk just before lunch, her professional smile brighter than usual. "Maya, I hope you've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. Sometimes the best way to support positive workplace dynamics is to focus on areas where we can make the most meaningful contributions." The words were corporate speak, but Maya heard the underlying message clearly. Last chance to back down before Sarah escalated her threats. "I've been thinking about a lot of things," Maya replied carefully, "including how much I value transparency and accountability in corporate environments." Sarah's smile never wavered, but something shifted in her eyes. Transparency is wonderful in theory, but sometimes discretion serves everyone's interests better, especially when family considerations are involved. There it was, the reminder that Sarah held power over Maya's mother's medical care. The threat wrapped in concern, delivered with the polished professionalism that had made Sarah one of TechFlow's most trusted executives. "I understand you have access to comprehensive employee files," Maya said, matching Sarah's neutral tone. "That must give you interesting insights into people's personal situations." "It's a responsibility I take very seriously, protecting employee privacy while ensuring appropriate support when challenges arise." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Must be quite a system. All those timestamps and access logs. Digital signatures tracking who viewed what information when." For just a moment, Sarah's professional mask slipped. Maya caught a flicker of something darker underneath. Calculation, concern, the look of someone who suddenly realized they might have overlooked a crucial detail. "Technology certainly creates interesting documentation trails," Sarah replied, her voice carefully modulated. "Of course, interpretation requires proper context and understanding." "Absolutely," Maya agreed. "Context is everything. Like understanding why someone might access employee files during periods when their keycard shows them in meetings across the building." Sarah's smile became slightly strained. "Administrative work often requires multitasking, remote access, delegated responsibilities, shared credentials for legitimate business purposes." Maya realized she was watching a master manipulator at work. Sarah was already constructing explanations for evidence she didn't know Maya possessed, creating plausible deniability for activities she wasn't sure had been discovered. "Well," Maya said pleasantly, "I'm sure any investigation would take all of that into account. Proper context, as you said." "Investigation?" Sarah's tone remained professional, but Maya caught the slight sharpening of focus. "Is there something specific you're concerned about?" "Just general interest in how these systems work. Transparency, accountability, making sure everyone's following proper protocols." Sarah studied Maya's face with the intensity of someone reading tells in a high-stakes poker game. Maya kept her expression neutral, giving away nothing while gathering intelligence about how much Sarah suspected. "Maya, if you're experiencing any concerns about workplace procedures or feeling pressure to take actions that might not be in your best interests, I want you to know that my door is always open. Sometimes employees feel they need to prove something, even when the smartest course of action is to focus on their core responsibilities." The warning was clear. Drop the investigation, return to your assigned role, and stop asking dangerous questions. "I appreciate the guidance," Maya replied. "I'll definitely keep that in mind as I continue my work." Sarah's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Maya was refusing to be intimidated, which meant the threat level was about to escalate. "Maya, I hope you understand that some situations have consequences that extend beyond immediate workplace considerations. Family obligations, medical situations, personal vulnerabilities. These things require careful thought about potential risks and unintended outcomes." Maya felt the chill of direct menace behind Sarah's professional words. This wasn't subtle anymore. Sarah was explicitly threatening her mother's safety while maintaining the pretense of offering helpful advice. "I understand perfectly," Maya said quietly. "Some situations require people to take stands regardless of personal cost. Sometimes protecting others means accepting risks ourselves." Sarah's mask slipped further. Maya was not backing down, which meant Sarah's carefully orchestrated psychological pressure campaign was failing. "I see," Sarah said after a long pause. "Well, I hope you'll think carefully about the full scope of potential consequences for everyone involved." After Sarah left, Maya sat at her workstation feeling the weight of 30 hours remaining until Derek's promotion ceremony. The conversation had confirmed her worst suspicions. Sarah was willing to use lethal threats to protect her criminal operation. But it had also revealed something crucial. Sarah was worried about digital evidence trails. The references to timestamps, access logs, and documentation suggested she understood that her activities left electronic footprints. That meant Maya's investigation was on the right track. Sarah's concern about proper context indicated she knew her alibis might not hold up under forensic examination. Maya was close enough to make Sarah desperate, close enough to make her reveal her hand through direct threats, close enough to win if Maya could survive the next 30 hours. "I need to ask you something, and your answer might determine how this story ends. If you discovered your trusted colleague was orchestrating a massive fraud operation while threatening innocent people, would you report them immediately or gather more evidence to ensure they couldn't escape justice?" Maya's choice in the next few hours will decide everything. Let me know in the comments what you would do in her situation. Maya's decision crystallized as she watched Derek Stone hold court in the break room, regaling colleagues with stories of his upcoming VP responsibilities. He was completely oblivious to the criminal charges that would destroy his career within 48 hours. Sarah had used him perfectly. Charismatic enough to be believable as a successful leader, arrogant enough to take credit for results he hadn't earned, and naive enough never to question the system that had elevated him. Maya felt almost sorry for Derek, until she remembered the sport bra incident. He might be Sarah's puppet, but he was also a sexual predator who used his position to humiliate women. His destruction would serve justice on multiple levels. But Sarah Mitchell was the real target, the mastermind who had constructed this elaborate theft operation while positioning herself as the caring administrator who protected employee welfare. Her psychological manipulation skills made her far more dangerous than Derek's crude intimidation tactics. Maya activated her final evidence collection protocol. For the past 6 months, her automated systems had been logging every financial transaction, every email communication, every keycard access, and every digital signature connected to Derek's basketball team bonus payments. The evidence was overwhelming, but it needed to be presented in a format that would survive corporate legal challenges and federal scrutiny. Maya spent the afternoon building what she called her justice package, a comprehensive dossier that told the complete story of Sarah's criminal enterprise. The package included financial flow charts showing how money moved from legitimate tech flow budget categories through Team Development LLC into Derek's team bonuses. Email communications that revealed the systematic nature of the fraud operation. Timestamp analysis proving that authorization signatures occurred during periods when the supposed approvers had documented alibis elsewhere. Most damaging of all, Maya had documented Sarah's pattern of accessing employee personal files during the same time frames she was authorizing fraudulent payments. The correlation was too perfect to be coincidental. Sarah had been mining employee personal information to identify potential threats to her operation and develop pressure points for maintaining control. Maya's mother wasn't Sarah's first victim. She was just the most recent target in a systematic intimidation campaign that had been running for 2 years. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Jessica Williams. Conference room C, 15 minutes. Found something you need to see. Maya found Jessica hunched over a laptop, her face pale with shock. Financial spreadsheets covered the screen, but these weren't the standard TechFlow reports Maya had been analyzing. Maya, I've been running parallel analysis on the shell company transactions, Jessica began without preamble. I thought there might be additional accounts we hadn't discovered yet. Did you find something? I found everything. Jessica's voice was barely above a whisper. Maya, this operation is so much bigger than we thought. Team Development LLC isn't the only shell company. There are at least 6 others, all feeding money back to the same central account. Maya leaned closer to study the screen. Jessica had constructed a financial flow chart that looked like a hydra, multiple heads feeding a single body. The scope was staggering. How much money are we talking about? Over $2.7 million across the past 3 years. Maya, this isn't just workplace fraud. This is organized corporate theft on a scale that will trigger federal prosecution. Maya felt the weight of the revelation settle on her shoulders. She'd stumbled onto something far more significant than basketball team bonus payments. Sarah Mitchell was running a multi-million-dollar embezzlement operation that penetrated deep into TechFlow's financial infrastructure. But here's the thing that really terrifies me, Jessica continued. I've been trying to trace the authorization patterns, and they're incredibly sophisticated. Whoever's running this operation has access to executive-level financial systems and enough administrative authority to create false paper trails that would fool standard corporate audits. Sarah Mitchell, Maya said quietly. That's what I thought too, until I found this. Jessica pulled up a new screen showing email communications between multiple TechFlow executives. Maya, I think Sarah is working with someone else, someone even higher up the corporate hierarchy. Maya's stomach dropped. The possibility that Sarah had conspirators in TechFlow's executive leadership made the entire operation exponentially more dangerous. If the corruption went that high, exposing it could trigger corporate retaliation that would destroy anyone involved. Who? Maya asked. I don't know yet. The email patterns suggest at least 2 additional people with C-level access, but they're using encrypted communications and coded language that I can't fully decode. Maya realized that her investigation had just become exponentially more complicated. She wasn't just dealing with one rogue HR director, she was uncovering a conspiracy that might reach all the way to TechFlow's executive board. Jessica, we need to be extremely careful. If this goes as high as you think it does, they have resources we can't imagine. Corporate legal teams, private investigators, connections with law enforcement. They could bury us completely. I know, Jessica replied. But Maya, we also have something they don't expect. Documentation that goes back 3 years. Your automated systems have been logging everything, creating an evidence trail they probably don't even know exists. Maya looked at the financial flow chart on Jessica's screen and felt a surge of determination. Sarah Mitchell had threatened her mother's life to protect this operation. The people involved had stolen millions of dollars from TechFlow while maintaining facades as responsible corporate leaders. There's something else, Maya said quietly. Sarah threatened my mother last night, specifically threatened to interfere with her cancer treatments if I don't stop investigating. Jessica's face went white. Maya, that's not just corporate retaliation, that's criminal intimidation. We need to contact law enforcement immediately. We will. But first, we need to make sure they can't destroy the evidence or disappear before arrests can be made. The live stream of Derek's promotion ceremony is our opportunity to expose everything simultaneously. Jessica nodded slowly. Public exposure, followed by immediate law enforcement action. They won't have time to mount a cover-up. Maya felt the pieces of her plan coming together. Tomorrow's promotion ceremony would become the platform for the largest corporate fraud exposure in TechFlow's history. Derek Stone would be publicly humiliated, Sarah Mitchell would be arrested, and whatever conspiracy existed in the executive leadership would be dragged into the light. But first, she needed to survive the next 24 hours. Maya's phone rang as she and Jessica finished planning their evidence presentation strategy. Unknown number again. Maya's hand hesitated over the decline button, but she decided to answer. Maya, Sarah Mitchell's voice was calm, professional, completely recognizable despite the electronic modification from the previous night. I think we need to have another conversation. The pretense was gone. Sarah was no longer hiding behind anonymous threats. I'm listening, Maya replied, activating her phone's recording function. You're a smart woman, Maya. Smarter than I initially gave you credit for, but intelligence without wisdom can be dangerous, especially when family considerations are involved. Are you threatening my mother again? I'm offering you a choice, a very simple choice. You can accept a generous severance package, effective immediately, and relocate to a position with another company. Your mother's medical expenses would be covered indefinitely through a private foundation that specializes in cancer research funding. Maya felt her pulse quicken. Sarah was offering a bribe massive enough to solve all of Maya's financial problems while ensuring her silence about the fraud operation. And if I refuse? Then your mother's medical care becomes subject to the same kind of administrative complications that can arise when insurance coverage is questioned. Treatment protocols are re-evaluated, and medical facilities experience staffing changes that impact patient care. The threat was specific enough to be terrifying. Sarah wasn't just threatening to withdraw financial support. She was threatening to actively sabotage her mother's cancer treatment through administrative manipulation. You have 2 hours to decide, Sarah continued. After that, the offer expires and alternative measures become necessary. The line went dead. Maya sat in conference room C, staring at her phone and feeling the full weight of Sarah's criminal sophistication. This wasn't just corporate fraud. Sarah was running an operation that included bribery, intimidation, and threats against terminally ill patients. Maya, what did she say? Jessica asked quietly. Maya recounted the conversation, watching Jessica's expression grow darker with each detail. She's offering you a way out that protects her operation while buying your silence, Jessica said finally. But Maya, if you take that deal, she'll know that threatening family members is an effective strategy for controlling anyone who discovers her activities. Maya nodded. She'll use the same tactics against other employees who stumble onto evidence. Other people with sick family members, financial problems, personal vulnerabilities she can exploit. Exactly. Taking the deal might save your mother, but it ensures that other people will suffer the same threats in the future. Maya looked at Jessica's financial analysis on the laptop screen. $2.7 million stolen from TechFlow over 3 years. Money that should have funded legitimate employee benefits, training programs, and corporate development initiatives. Money that had instead enriched Sarah Mitchell and her unknown conspirators while they maintained public facades as responsible corporate leaders. I'm not taking the deal, Maya said firmly. Sarah Mitchell crossed a line when she threatened my mother. Now she's going to face the consequences. Are you sure? Maya, this is your mother's life we're talking about. My mother raised me to stand up for what's right, even when it's dangerous. She'd never forgive me if I let criminals destroy other families to save ours. Jessica nodded slowly. Then we need to move fast. 24 hours until the promotion ceremony, and Sarah will be watching for any indication that you're continuing the investigation. Maya activated her most sophisticated counter-surveillance protocol. If Sarah was monitoring her activities, Maya needed to create digital blindness that would prevent detection of her final evidence compilation. Jessica, I need you to help me build the most comprehensive fraud exposure package in corporate history. By tomorrow morning, we're going to have evidence that will put Sarah Mitchell in federal prison for the rest of her life. The war was entering its final phase. Maya spent the weekend constructing what would become the most comprehensive corporate fraud exposure in TechFlow's history. Working from her apartment with Jessica, providing remote financial analysis, she built a digital fortress of evidence that would survive any attempt at corporate retaliation or legal challenge. The justice package contained 6 major components: financial flow analysis, showing the complete shell company network; timestamp correlation proving Sarah's authorization patterns during alibi periods; email communications revealing the systematic nature of the operation; employee file access logs demonstrating Sarah's intelligence-gathering activities; security camera footage documenting Derek's harassment campaign; and most damning of all, the recorded phone conversation where Sarah had explicitly threatened Maya's mother's medical care. But Maya's breakthrough came Sunday evening when she discovered Sarah's fatal mistake. While reviewing keycard access logs from the past month, Maya noticed that Sarah's card had been used to access the executive financial systems at 11:47 p.m. on Thursday night, exactly 13 minutes after Derek's basketball team had won their weekly game and triggered another fraudulent bonus payment. The problem was that security camera footage showed Sarah leaving the building at 6:15 p.m. that same evening, and her personal cell phone location data indicated she was at home during the entire time period when her keycard was supposedly accessing financial systems. Sarah Mitchell had been remotely accessing TechFlow's financial networks, using stolen executive credentials, while maintaining perfect alibis about her physical location. The digital forensics were irrefutable. Maya cross-referenced this pattern with 18 months of data and found the same discrepancy repeating dozens of times. Sarah had been conducting her fraud operation through remote access while creating documentary evidence that she was always somewhere else when the crimes occurred. But the automated logging systems Maya had implemented captured everything. Every login, every authorization, every transaction carried metadata that revealed the true source of the activities Sarah had been hiding. Maya realized she was looking at evidence that would not only destroy Sarah's career, but likely result in federal charges for wire fraud, computer intrusion, and racketeering. The scope of the criminal enterprise was so vast that it would trigger investigations into TechFlow's entire executive structure. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Maya, I found the other conspirators. You're not going to believe who's involved." They met at a 24-hour diner 15 minutes from TechFlow's corporate campus, choosing a public location where surveillance would be difficult and conversations could remain private. Jessica arrived with a laptop bag and the expression of someone who had discovered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about their workplace. "Maya, the financial analysis you asked me to run revealed connections that go straight to the top of TechFlow's corporate hierarchy," Jessica began without preamble. "Sarah Mitchell isn't just working alone. She's part of a conspiracy that includes at least 2 members of the executive leadership team." Maya felt her stomach drop. "Who?" Chief Financial Officer Patricia Hayes and Vice President of Operations Michael Torres. "Maya, these aren't just rogue employees. This is organized criminal activity at the highest levels of corporate management." Jessica opened her laptop and displayed a financial network diagram that looked like a spiderweb. Shell companies, dummy accounts, and fraudulent transactions connected in patterns that revealed a sophisticated money laundering operation that had been running for over 3 years. The basketball team bonuses were just one component of a much larger scheme, Jessica continued. They were also creating fake consulting contracts, inflated equipment purchases, and phantom employee bonuses across multiple departments. "Maya, we're looking at over $5 million in total theft." Maya stared at the diagram, her mind racing through the implications. If the conspiracy reached TechFlow's executive leadership, exposing it would trigger corporate warfare that could destroy anyone involved. CFOs and VPs had resources that HR directors could only dream of. Legal teams, private investigators, political connections, and the ability to manipulate financial systems in ways that could frame innocent people for crimes they didn't commit. Jessica, if this goes as high as you think it does, we're not just risking our careers. We're risking our lives. I know. But Maya, if we don't expose this, they'll continue stealing millions of dollars while destroying anyone who threatens their operation. Your mother won't be the last innocent person they target. Maya realized that her investigation had uncovered something far more significant than workplace harassment or simple fraud. She was looking at evidence of a criminal enterprise that had infiltrated TechFlow's highest levels of management and was using corporate resources to conduct organized theft on a massive scale. The live-streamed promotion ceremony scheduled for Monday morning wasn't just an opportunity to expose Derek Stone's fraud. It was a chance to bring down an entire criminal network that had been operating with impunity for years. Jessica, we need to contact federal law enforcement tonight. This is beyond what we can handle through corporate channels. I already did, Jessica replied quietly. I contacted the FBI's white-collar crime division 2 hours ago and transmitted preliminary evidence packages. Special Agent Rebecca Sullivan is coordinating with the Department of Labor to implement simultaneous raids on Monday morning. Maya felt a surge of relief, mixed with terror. Federal involvement meant the investigation was beyond corporate retaliation, but it also meant she was now a key witness in a criminal prosecution that could result in decades of prison time for some of TechFlow's most powerful executives. Maya, there's something else you need to know. Agent Sullivan wants to use tomorrow's promotion ceremony as a controlled environment for arresting the conspirators. They'll be monitoring the live stream and coordinating with local law enforcement to ensure all parties are taken into custody simultaneously. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Derek's promotion ceremony would proceed as scheduled, creating a false sense of security for the criminal network. Maya would expose the evidence during the live-streamed event, providing public documentation of the accusations. Federal agents would then execute arrest warrants for all parties involved, preventing any opportunity for evidence destruction or escape. What about Sarah's threat against my mother? Maya asked. Agent Sullivan has coordinated with Riverside Medical Center to implement enhanced security protocols. Your mother's treatment will proceed under federal protection, and any attempt to interfere with her medical care will result in additional criminal charges. Maya felt the weight of 18 months of investigation finally shifting from her shoulders to federal law enforcement. She had done everything possible to build an airtight case. Now it was time to let the justice system take over. But first, she had to survive Monday morning's promotion ceremony and the confrontation that would destroy Sarah Mitchell's carefully constructed criminal empire. Monday morning arrived with the crisp energy of corporate performance theater. TechFlow's main conference room had been transformed into a presentation space suitable for live streaming to all employees, complete with professional lighting, multiple camera angles, and a backdrop featuring the company logo and promotional slogans about excellence and integrity. Maya arrived early, ostensibly to provide technical support for the live streaming equipment, but actually to implement her final evidence upload protocol. Every piece of documentation was ready for simultaneous transmission to federal authorities, news organizations, and TechFlow's board of directors. Derek Stone appeared 30 minutes before the ceremony, his confidence radiating through expensive cologne and a suit that probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary. He moved through the conference room like a conquering hero, shaking hands with executives and posing for photographers who would capture his moment of triumph. Sarah Mitchell stood beside him, her professional smile perfect as always, offering congratulations and administrative support with the seamless competence that had made her indispensable to TechFlow's management structure. Maya watched Sarah's performance with the knowledge that within 2 hours, federal agents would be placing handcuffs on those perfectly manicured hands. CEO William Richardson called the meeting to order at exactly 10 a.m., his voice carrying through the live stream to every TechFlow employee. Maya sat in the back row, her laptop open and connected to systems that would soon expose the largest corporate fraud in the company's history. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce the promotion of Derek Stone to Vice President of Regional Sales, Richardson began, his words triggering applause from the assembled executives. Derek's leadership of our team development initiatives has generated unprecedented performance improvements across multiple departments. Maya almost laughed at the irony. Derek's team development initiatives had indeed generated unprecedented results. For the criminal enterprise that had been stealing millions of dollars while using basketball games as cover for money laundering operations. You think Derek's promotion ceremony is going to be a celebration? Think again. What I'm about to show you will flip everything you thought you knew about this entire story. Sarah's been playing a different game entirely, one where she's not just the helpful HR director, but the mastermind who's been pulling every string from the shadows. The evidence Maya's about to reveal will expose the most sophisticated corporate conspiracy you've ever seen, and Derek Stone is about to discover he's been nothing but a pawn. Richardson continued his presentation, detailing Derek's supposed achievements and the financial metrics that justified his promotion. Maya listened to the lies with growing amazement at the audacity of criminals who could stand before their victims and celebrate the success of their crimes. Derek's innovative approach to team building has generated over $800,000 in improved performance metrics, Richardson announced, his words carrying through the live stream to hundreds of employees who had no idea they were hearing a description of systematic theft. Maya activated her evidence presentation system. Every financial transaction, every fraudulent authorization, every piece of digital documentation was ready for immediate transmission. Her finger hovered over the execute button, waiting for the perfect moment to destroy Derek's promotion and Sarah's criminal enterprise simultaneously. Derek approached the podium, his smile brilliant under the professional lighting. Thank you, Mr. Richardson. It's an honor to accept this promotion and the responsibilities that come with leading TechFlow's regional sales initiatives. Maya pressed execute. The conference room's presentation screen flickered, then displayed a new image, a financial flow chart showing money moving from TechFlow's legitimate budget categories through shell companies into Derek's team bonus accounts. The live stream carried the image to every employee watching from their workstations across the company. "What's happening?" Richardson demanded, his voice carrying confusion and growing alarm. Maya stood up, her voice steady and clear. Derek Stone has been receiving fraudulent bonus payments totaling over $400,000 through a money laundering operation coordinated by HR Director Sarah Mitchell. The conference room erupted into chaos. Derek's face went white as he stared at the evidence displayed on the screen behind him. Sarah maintained her professional composure, but Maya caught the flash of calculation in her eyes as she assessed escape routes and damage control options. "These are serious accusations," Richardson said, his CEO training kicking in to manage the crisis. "Maya, do you have evidence to support these claims?" "I have 18 months of financial documentation, email communications, and digital forensics proving that Sarah Mitchell has been orchestrating a systematic embezzlement operation using Derek's basketball team as a distribution network for stolen funds." Maya's laptop transmitted the complete evidence package to federal authorities, news organizations, and TechFlow's board of directors simultaneously. Within minutes, the documentation would be in the hands of people with the authority to act on the criminal revelations. Sarah Mitchell finally spoke, her voice carrying the calm authority that had made her so effective at manipulating corporate dynamics. "Maya, these accusations are clearly the result of workplace stress and personal conflicts that have clouded your judgment. I think everyone here understands that disgruntled employees sometimes resort to desperate measures when they feel their careers are threatened." Maya recognized the technique immediately. Sarah was using her HR expertise to reframe Maya as an unstable employee making baseless accusations against successful colleagues. It was the same psychological manipulation that had protected the criminal enterprise for 3 years. Sarah, explain why your keycard accessed executive financial systems at 11:47 p.m. last Thursday, while security cameras show you leaving the building at 6:15 p.m. that same evening. For the first time since Maya had known her, Sarah Mitchell looked genuinely surprised. Maya had just revealed evidence that Sarah didn't know existed, proof of remote access activities that contradicted her carefully constructed alibis. Administrative work often requires off-site access to corporate systems, Sarah replied, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. Explain why your digital signature appears on fraudulent authorization forms during periods when meeting schedules and keycard logs place you in different locations throughout the building. Sarah's professional mask cracked. Maya was systematically destroying the alibi structure that had protected Sarah's criminal activities, revealing evidence that proved deliberate fraud rather than administrative oversight. Explain why you accessed my personal employee file immediately after threatening my mother's medical care if I didn't stop investigating your criminal activities. The conference room fell silent. Maya had just publicly accused the HR director of criminal intimidation and threats against a terminally ill cancer patient. The live stream carried her words to every TechFlow employee, creating public documentation that would be impossible to suppress or deny. Derek Stone finally found his voice. Sarah, what is she talking about? What criminal activities? Maya realized that Derek genuinely didn't understand the scope of the operation he'd been part of. Sarah had used him perfectly, allowing him to take credit for the financial benefits while keeping him ignorant of the criminal methods that generated those benefits. Derek, you've been participating in a money laundering operation for the past 2 years, Maya explained, her voice carrying sympathy for someone who was both perpetrator and victim. The basketball team bonuses were funded through stolen money that Sarah Mitchell redirected from legitimate TechFlow budget categories. Derek's face went through a series of expressions as he processed the information. Confusion, understanding, horror, and finally rage, as he realized how completely he'd been manipulated. Sarah, is this true? Derek's voice carried the kind of betrayal that came from discovering that someone you trusted had been using you as a tool for criminal enterprise. Sarah looked around the conference room, assessing her options with the calculating precision of someone who understood that her criminal empire was collapsing in real time. Maya recognized the moment when Sarah decided to abandon any pretense of innocence. Derek, you were always too naive to understand how corporate advancement really works, Sarah said, her voice cold with contempt. You thought your charm and basketball skills earned those bonuses. You never questioned why your mediocre sales performance generated such substantial rewards. The admission carried through the live stream to hundreds of employees. Sarah Mitchell had just publicly confessed to orchestrating the fraud operation, while revealing her complete contempt for the people she'd manipulated. Richardson activated the emergency protocol that would terminate the live stream, but Maya had anticipated this move. Her systems continued broadcasting through independent channels that bypassed TechFlow's corporate controls. Security, please escort Ms. Collins from the building, Richardson ordered, his voice reflecting the panic of a CEO watching his company's reputation destroyed in real time. That won't be necessary, a new voice said from the conference room entrance. Special Agent Rebecca Sullivan entered with 3 other federal agents, their badges clearly visible and their presence transforming the corporate promotion ceremony into a criminal arrest scene. Sarah Mitchell, you're under arrest for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit embezzlement, Sullivan announced, her voice carrying the authority of federal law enforcement. Sarah's professional mask finally shattered completely. Maya watched as handcuffs closed around the wrists that had signed fraudulent authorizations for 3 years while maintaining the facade of a caring HR professional. Derek Stone, You're also under arrest as a participant in the money laundering operation, Sullivan continued, though her tone suggested recognition that Derek was more victim than perpetrator. Derek's face reflected complete bewilderment as federal agents read him his rights. Maya felt sympathy for someone who had been used so thoroughly by people he'd trusted, even though his harassment and assault had triggered the investigation that exposed the entire criminal enterprise. "Maya Collins," Agent Sullivan said, "thank you for your cooperation with this investigation. Your evidence documentation has been invaluable in building the case against this criminal network." Maya realized that her 18-month journey from harassment victim to federal witness was finally complete. The automated systems she'd implemented had captured evidence that would put Sarah Mitchell in federal prison for decades, while exposing a criminal conspiracy that reached the highest levels of TechFlow's corporate management. Richardson watched his VP of Regional Sales and HR Director being arrested on charges that would dominate news coverage for months. Maya felt almost sorry for the CEO, who had genuinely believed he was promoting a successful executive rather than celebrating the achievements of a criminal enterprise. The live stream continued broadcasting as federal agents led Sarah and Derek from the conference room in handcuffs. Hundreds of TechFlow employees watched their colleagues being arrested for crimes that had been funded with money stolen from the company they all worked for. Maya gathered her laptop and evidence files, her role in the investigation transitioning from active participant to federal witness. The basketball court where Derek had assaulted her would become evidence in a criminal prosecution. The conference room where Sarah had been arrested would be remembered as the place where one of the largest corporate fraud cases in state history was exposed. But Maya's mind was already moving beyond the arrests and criminal charges. Her mother's medical care was protected under federal oversight. Her financial security was ensured through whistleblower rewards, and her career as an IT security specialist had been transformed into something far more significant. The investigation that began with basketball harassment had uncovered a criminal enterprise that stole millions of dollars while destroying anyone who threatened its operation. Maya's automated systems had preserved evidence that would ensure justice for every victim while preventing future fraud through enhanced corporate oversight. The war was over. Justice had won. 3 months later, Maya stood in the renovated TechFlow Recreation Center, watching new employees participate in basketball games governed by policies that ensured equal access and zero tolerance for harassment. The court where Derek Stone had assaulted her now featured security camera notices and timestamp displays that reminded everyone that actions had consequences and evidence was permanent. Sarah Mitchell had pled guilty to federal charges that would keep her in prison for 25 years. Derek Stone had cooperated with prosecutors in exchange for reduced charges, his testimony revealing the psychological manipulation techniques Sarah had used to control the entire operation. CFO Patricia Hayes and VP Michael Torres had been arrested 2 weeks after the initial exposure, their involvement in the wider conspiracy documented through the financial analysis Jessica Williams had provided to federal investigators. Maya's mother had completed her cancer treatment under the enhanced security protocols that protected her from any retaliation attempts. The medical costs that had once threatened to bankrupt Maya's family were now covered through the $50,000 whistleblower reward she'd received from the Department of Labor. TechFlow had implemented comprehensive corporate governance reforms designed to prevent future fraud. Maya had been promoted to Chief Information Security Officer, with responsibility for maintaining the automated oversight systems that would monitor all financial transactions and flag any patterns that suggested criminal activity. The basketball court had been redesigned with new team formation policies that prevented any single group from dominating recreational activities. Derek's old team had been disbanded, its members reassigned to different departments where their skills could be properly utilized without creating opportunities for abuse. Maya walked across the court where her investigation had begun, her footsteps echoing in the space that had been transformed from a site of harassment into a symbol of institutional accountability. The timestamp display in the corner showed 3:47 p.m., a constant reminder that every action was recorded and every crime left digital footprints that could be followed by people with the right skills and determination. Jessica Williams approached from the finance department, her role expanded to include fraud detection and prevention responsibilities that used the analytical methods they'd developed during the investigation. Maya, the quarterly audit results came back clean, Jessica reported with satisfaction. No anomalies, no suspicious patterns, no shell companies hiding in the financial infrastructure. Good. The automated systems are working exactly as designed. Maya looked around the recreation center, watching employees from different departments interact without the hierarchical intimidation that had characterized Derek's regime. The changes went deeper than policy reforms. The entire corporate culture had shifted toward transparency and accountability in ways that made future criminal enterprises nearly impossible to sustain. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Barnes. Your mother's latest scans show continued improvement. Treatment has been extremely successful. Maya smiled, remembering the night she'd almost deleted all her evidence to protect her mother from Sarah's threats. The decision to continue the investigation despite personal risk had saved not only her family, but dozens of other employees who would have become victims of an expanding criminal operation. The recreation center's PA system crackled to life, announcing the daily team formation for basketball games. Maya listened to the names being called, noting the diversity and fairness that now characterized team selection. No single group dominated. No individual had the power to exclude others. Everyone who wanted to play had an opportunity to participate. Maya, Jessica said quietly, do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't fought back that day? Maya considered the question, thinking about all the evidence that would have remained hidden, all the money that would have continued being stolen, all the employees who would have faced harassment and intimidation without recourse. Derek would have gotten his VP promotion. Sarah would have expanded the theft operation. The criminal network would have grown until it controlled TechFlow's entire financial infrastructure. And your mother? Sarah would have followed through on her threat. Medical interference, administrative complications, treatment delays that could have been fatal. Maya realized that her decision to activate the security cameras during Derek's assault had triggered a chain of events that saved not only her family, but potentially dozens of other families from similar threats. The evidence preservation systems she'd implemented had protected everyone who might have become victims of an expanding criminal enterprise. The basketball games resumed around them. Players focused on competition and teamwork rather than intimidation and exclusion. Maya watched colleagues who had once been too afraid to challenge Derek's authority now participating as equals in recreational activities that belonged to everyone. A group of new employees approached the court, uncertain about team formation and game rules. Maya recognized the anxiety she'd felt months earlier when she'd first wanted to play basketball during lunch break. Room for one more? She asked, picking up a basketball and joining the team formation. Absolutely, came the immediate reply. Everyone's welcome here. Maya smiled, remembering Derek's words from that first day. Quiet girls should stick to keyboards, not courts. She'd proved that quiet girls could master both keyboards and courts, and that evidence preserved with the right systems could outweigh any amount of intimidation or corruption. As the game began, Maya caught sight of the timestamp display in the corner. 4:12 p.m. Activity logged. The cameras were still recording, the systems were still monitoring, and the evidence was still being preserved. But now those systems protected justice rather than exposing corruption. The war was over, but the vigilance continued. Games end, Maya thought, watching the ball bounce across the court where her investigation had begun. Records don't. Justice isn't a feeling. It's a file that outweighs denial. The transformation was complete. TechFlow had become the kind of company where harassment was impossible, fraud was prevented, and employees could pursue their careers without fear of retaliation from criminal enterprises hiding behind corporate facades. Maya Collins had started as a quiet IT specialist who just wanted to play basketball during lunch break. She'd become the person who brought down a multi-million-dollar criminal conspiracy while protecting innocent families from threats that could have destroyed their lives. The basketball bounced toward her. Maya caught it cleanly, aimed carefully, and took her shot. Perfect form, perfect timing, perfect justice. The ball swished through the net as the timestamp display recorded another moment in TechFlow's new era of accountability. 4:15 p.m. Evidence secured. Some victories were worth fighting for, regardless of the cost. 6 months after the arrests, Maya received an unexpected visitor in her new corner office. Dr. Elizabeth Barnes sat across from her desk, no longer speaking as a treating physician, but as someone whose life had been changed by Maya's investigation. "Maya, I wanted to thank you personally," Dr. Barnes began, her voice carrying an emotion Maya hadn't heard during their clinical conversations about her mother's treatment. "What you exposed at TechFlow, it saved more lives than you realize." Maya looked up from the quarterly security report she'd been reviewing, her attention fully focused on the woman who had protected her mother during the most dangerous phase of the investigation. "I don't understand." Dr. Barnes opened a file folder, revealing documents that made Maya's breath catch. "Sarah Mitchell wasn't just threatening your mother's care. We discovered she had been systematically targeting cancer patients whose family members worked for companies she was investigating for potential fraud operations." The revelation hit Maya like a physical blow. Sarah's criminal enterprise had extended far beyond TechFlow, using medical intimidation as a weapon against anyone who might expose corporate corruption across multiple organizations. She identified employees with vulnerable family members through HR networks and background check services, Dr. Barnes continued. Cancer patients, elderly relatives requiring long-term care, disabled family members dependent on specialized treatment. She built profiles of personal vulnerabilities and used them to silence potential whistleblowers. Maya stared at the documents, her mind struggling to process the scope of Sarah's psychological warfare campaign. The threat against her mother hadn't been an isolated incident. It was part of a systematic pattern of criminal intimidation that had protected fraud operations across multiple corporations. How many victims? We've identified 47 cases across 8 companies where Sarah Mitchell or her associates used medical intimidation to prevent fraud investigations. Maya, your decision to continue your investigation, despite the threats, broke open a conspiracy that had been operating for over 5 years. Maya felt the weight of an entirely new understanding settle on her shoulders. Her personal battle against workplace harassment had uncovered something far more sinister. A network of corporate criminals who used the most vulnerable members of society as weapons against their own family members. The FBI's White-Collar Crime Division has opened investigations into all 8 companies, Dr. Barnes explained. Your evidence preservation methods have become the standard protocol for corporate fraud investigations. You didn't just save TechFlow, you've changed how federal law enforcement approaches corporate crime. Maya walked to her office window, looking down at the recreation center where her investigation had begun. The space that had once represented Derek's intimidation campaign now symbolized something far more significant. Proof that individual courage could dismantle criminal enterprises that seemed too powerful to challenge. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Finished physical therapy. Doctor says I'm officially cancer-free. Lunch celebration at 2 p.m.? Maya smiled, remembering the night she'd almost deleted all her evidence to protect her mother from Sarah's threats. The choice to continue fighting had saved not only her family, but dozens of other families from similar manipulation. A knock on her office door interrupted her reflection. Jessica Williams entered, carrying a tablet and wearing the confident expression of someone who had found her calling in financial fraud prevention. "Maya, the new automated oversight system flagged something interesting," Jessica began, her voice carrying excitement rather than concern. "Not fraud this time. The opposite, actually." Maya turned from the window, intrigued by Jessica's tone. "Remember how Derek's basketball team used to dominate court time through intimidation? The new fair access scheduling system has generated some unexpected results." Jessica displayed data showing recreational facility usage patterns since the policy reforms. Basketball participation had increased by 300%, with employees from every department now participating in games that had once been controlled by Derek's inner circle. "But here's the really interesting part," Jessica continued. "Employee satisfaction surveys show that access to recreational facilities has become the second most important factor in job satisfaction, right after salary and benefits. People are staying at TechFlow because they feel safe participating in activities that used to be exclusive to management favorites." Maya realized that her investigation had generated benefits far beyond criminal prosecution and fraud prevention. The cultural transformation at TechFlow had created an environment where employees felt valued and protected, leading to retention improvements that benefited everyone. "There's something else," Jessica said, her voice carrying a note of pride. 3 other companies have contacted TechFlow, requesting consultation on implementing similar oversight systems. "Maya, your evidence preservation protocols are becoming industry standards." The irony wasn't lost on Maya. Her quiet work as an IT security specialist had evolved into something that would influence corporate governance across multiple industries. The systems she'd developed to catch criminals were now being used to prevent crime before it could take root. Her computer chimed with an encrypted email from Special Agent Rebecca Sullivan. Maya opened the message, expecting routine updates about the ongoing prosecutions. Instead, she found an invitation that would change her career trajectory entirely. "Maya," the email began, "the Department of Justice is establishing a new corporate crime prevention initiative focused on developing automated oversight systems that can detect fraud patterns before they mature into criminal enterprises. We'd like to offer you a position as Senior Technology Consultant, with responsibility for training federal agents and corporate security specialists in evidence preservation and pattern analysis techniques." Maya stared at the offer, her mind racing through implications she hadn't considered. Her investigation at TechFlow had demonstrated capabilities that federal law enforcement wanted to replicate across the entire corporate landscape. The position would mean leaving TechFlow, but it would also mean ensuring that what happened to her mother could never happen to other families. Sarah Mitchell's medical intimidation tactics would become impossible to implement when every corporation operated under oversight systems designed to detect and prevent such abuse. Another knock interrupted her thoughts. This time, CEO William Richardson entered her office, his expression carrying the weight of someone who had learned difficult lessons about corporate leadership. "Maya, I owe you an apology," Richardson began without preamble, "and an explanation about how TechFlow allowed Sarah Mitchell's criminal enterprise to operate undetected for so long." Maya gestured for Richardson to sit, curious about what the CEO had discovered during the months of internal investigations that followed the arrests. "The board of directors commissioned an independent review of our corporate governance systems," Richardson explained. "What we learned was disturbing. Sarah Mitchell had been systematically manipulating our oversight mechanisms for years, using her HR authority to suppress reports of irregular activities while building profiles of employees she could control through personal intimidation." Richardson opened a folder containing internal investigation results. She identified employees with financial pressures, family vulnerabilities, and career ambitions, then used that information to either recruit them into her operation or silence them if they discovered evidence of fraud. Maya realized that Sarah's manipulation had extended far beyond the basketball team bonus scheme. She had been running a comprehensive psychological operation that controlled information flow throughout the entire company. Derek Stone was just one of many employees she manipulated, Richardson continued. But your investigation revealed something we hadn't anticipated. Sarah was preparing to expand her operation beyond TechFlow. She had been building relationships with HR directors at other companies, sharing techniques for identifying and controlling potential whistleblowers. The scope kept expanding. Maya's local investigation had uncovered a network of corporate criminals who were sharing methods for suppressing fraud investigations across multiple organizations. Maya, the Department of Justice has briefed me on their job offer, Richardson said quietly. While TechFlow would hate to lose you, I think you have an opportunity to prevent what happened here from happening anywhere else. Maya looked around her office, taking in the security monitors that displayed real-time oversight data from every department. The systems she'd built were working perfectly, protecting TechFlow from future fraud while ensuring that employee concerns could be raised without fear of retaliation. But those systems were just the beginning. The techniques she'd developed could protect millions of employees across thousands of companies, making corporate crime exponentially more difficult to conceal and personal intimidation impossible to sustain. I need time to consider the offer, Maya said finally. Richardson nodded. Of course. But Maya, whatever you decide, know that what you did here has changed TechFlow permanently. We're a better company because you had the courage to fight back against people who seemed untouchable. After Richardson left, Maya sat alone in her office, weighing a decision that would define the next phase of her career. Stay at TechFlow and continue refining the systems that had brought down Sarah Mitchell's criminal enterprise, or join federal law enforcement in implementing those systems across the entire corporate landscape. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed Riverside Medical Center, but this time it wasn't about her mother's treatment. Maya, this is Dr. Barnes again, the voice said. I'm calling because I wanted you to know about something we discovered during the investigation into Sarah Mitchell's medical intimidation campaign. Maya braced herself for more revelations about the scope of Sarah's criminal activities. We found records showing that Sarah had been researching experimental cancer treatments that were being denied coverage by insurance companies. She was building a database of patients whose families might be willing to compromise professional ethics in exchange for access to treatments their loved ones couldn't otherwise afford. The manipulation was even more sophisticated than Maya had realized. Sarah hadn't just threatened to interfere with existing medical care. She had been identifying families desperate enough to be controlled through promises of access to treatments they couldn't otherwise obtain. Maya, because of your investigation, we've been able to contact every family on Sarah's target list and connect them with legitimate resources for accessing experimental treatments. You didn't just save your mother. You saved dozens of families from being exploited by criminals who weaponized hope. Maya closed her eyes, feeling the full weight of what her decision to continue investigating had ultimately accomplished. The choice to risk her mother's life in pursuit of justice had protected countless other families from similar exploitation. When she opened her eyes, Maya's decision was clear. She activated her secure communication system and began typing her response to Special Agent Sullivan's job offer. The federal position would allow her to implement automated oversight systems across thousands of corporations, making Sarah Mitchell's type of criminal enterprise impossible to sustain. The war that began in a corporate basketball court would continue in federal courtrooms and boardrooms across the country. Maya Collins, the quiet IT specialist who just wanted to play basketball during lunch break, was about to become the person who revolutionized corporate crime prevention. Some victories created ripples that transformed everything they touched. Maya's victory was just beginning.
You are not alone. Someone wants to hear you. Share your story. Thank you for watching to the end. Please like and subscribe to Stereo.